Rush Nation, Murf here. It's now week 9, or about to be week 9 of the NFL season. Over half the season has gone. We're 2/3 of the way, can't believe it, 2/3 of the way through the fantasy season for most people. It's gone in a flash. This is why the off season is so painful, because when you get to the regular season, it happens so quickly. And I'm here to bring you week 9 waiver wires. Nice and early, plenty of time to go through and digest the information to get your waiver wire claims in before early Wednesday. So going to start off with quarterbacks this time. As always, first one, and it's very slim pickings out there, but the first one is Kirk Cousins. He's 14.8% owned. He's got Detroit next week. And just by the fact I've got Kirk Cousins in here just shows you how thin the waiver wire is for quarterbacks. In terms of just that threshold of under 30% owned, the list is getting smaller every single week. I think right now, I'm just pulling it up, I think there's only 10 or so playable quarterbacks on the waiver wire. Just having a look now, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's 11 playable quarterbacks off the waiver wire. And even then, I'm using like Sam Darnold and Carl Allen as playable when realistically they're not. So at the end of the day, it's really, really thin out there. So Kirk Cousins is the pick this week. If you're wondering why, he didn't do much on Sunday. He didn't need to. Dalvin Cook just ran the ball down the Packers' throat, as any good team really should know. That's how you beat the Packers. The 49ers did it in the AFC title game. The Bucs did it a couple of weeks ago, but beat them with defense and a few other areas as well. And the Vikings, who struggled to beat anyone all season with just one win against Atlanta, have managed to beat the Packers here just by putting the ball down. And Dalvin Cook was absolutely terrific. But this time round in week 9, they're going to be facing Matt Stafford. They're going to be facing the Lions. This has all the ingredients of a shootout. Cousins does have 3 20-point games this season, and I can see him getting there for a 4th time in 8 games this coming weekend. Other pick out there is Tua Tagovailoa. He's 24.8% owned. Now, listen, he didn't have to do too much on Sunday. The Rams really threw away this game with so many turnovers, and the defense and the special teams plays by Miami were absolutely terrific. It's really hard to judge what you're going to be getting with Tua. We're hoping to get some form of picture, and we really don't. He had less than 100 yards passing, but when you're looking at the other options out there, and the options there for desperation sort of deep plays are Andy Dalton, Drew Lock, and Phil Rivers, it just isn't really anything out there. So these two would be my top 2 ads. If you are desperate, Phil Rivers, he had a nice game on Sunday, and he's put a couple together in a row now. He's an option. He's about 8% owned. Drew Lock had a great final quarter, but really for the first 3 games, he was struggling. In fact, I didn't even realize the Broncos had won this game until after I woke up this morning, because I turned the game off and it was 24-3, and I thought the game was well and truly over. The pick of all of these, if he's available in your waiver wire, is Derek Carr. Didn't have the strongest of games on Sunday, but he is very, very safe. And I think he's someone that can bring in some options for you going forward. So there would be my sort of outside 3, but these are my 2 sort of nailed on picks for under 30% owned this week. Moving on to running backs, Gus Edwards. He's the first choice here at 4.3% owned. He's got Indianapolis in week 9. Now, what's really key for this is all dependent on the injury to Mark Ingram. It looks like he's going to be out in week 9. So in that case, this backfield can really see a 2-headed backfield dominate, as they did against the Steelers on Sunday. They had over 240 yards of rushing at against the Steelers last night. You've got J.K. Dobbins who will lead the attack, but Gus the Bus will get some work. He ran for 16 attempts for 87 yards and a touchdown on Sunday. So he also got the goal line carry, which is important. So whilst it's a 2-headed backfield with just these 2, they're definitely both relevant. It's when it gets to that 3 headed backfield that's where it's a real struggle. So I like Gus Edwards as a play this week, especially if Mark Ingram is out. Next up is Damien Harris. He's 30% owned, so right on that 30% owned threshold. And he has the Jets next week. So Damien Harris ran for 102 yards against the Bills on Sunday. He got into the pay dirt. Doesn't look like Michel's going to be back because he's still battling COVID. And, you know, we've been waiting for Harris to break out. I wouldn't say necessarily broke out, but those sort of figures are really good for an RB2 week. And against the Jets, you would really fancy the Patriots just to run the ball, just keep the ball out of Cam Newton's hands and keep jamming it down the throat. So Harris, you know, a real desperation play, maybe a Rex Burkhead might get some work as he did in the passing game last night. But I like Damien Harris this week to really explode and to get over 100 yards again. If you're looking for a real desperation play, Jordan Wilkins, he had a really nice game on Sunday. Frank Reich wasn't expecting it. No one was expecting it. He went with a hot hand. Jonathan Taylor really struggled against the Detroit Lions, and it was Wilkins who really unlocked it. So he is a sort of desperation, deeper player as is sort of Rex Burkhead. For those over 30% owned, Cam Akers could finally be due a big week as Darrell Henderson went off injured. So if you can find Cam Akers on your waiver wire, he's someone definitely worth targeting. And Naheem Hines, he got 2 receiving touchdowns. He's going to be very boom or bust, but you know, running back is very, very thin right now. If he's out there, he's someone that's definitely worth adding. Moving on to wide receivers. First one is Jalen REAGOR. He's 13.7% owned. He actually has a bye this week, but he did get his first NFL touchdown on Sunday. He did only have 3 catches, and it has been a bit of a disaster given the fact he's been hurt so much. But effectively, Jalen REAGOR is a first-round wide receiver rookie pick, and he is due to be the alpha in this offense. And that offense is just starting to get a little bit better. It's been playing with guys off the street, guys in the practice squad. But this is now where you would expect the Eagles to come alive here in the coming weeks after the bye, get guys healthy. REAGOR especially, he's going to get some time with Wentz in practice now because they haven't had a lot of time to practice together. And I see REAGOR getting better and better as the weeks go on. So he's a very interesting buy low, especially on a buy. So you can get him very, very cheap. So I'd be going out there acquiring him for a couple of fab bucks because there isn't anyone else out there who's going to be an alpha receiver, who's going to get that volume, who's going to get that kind of work out there on the waiver wire right now. The other guys are guys who I'm going to recommend now are people who might get some work every now and again, but they're very boom and bust. And to start off that boom and bust trend, let's start off with Mr. Boom and Bust himself, Mecole Hardman, 27.6% owned. He has Carolina in week 9. Now, he's probably the most infuriating player to own because he just can do nothing for weeks and then do what he did on Sunday, go for 7, 96, and 1. And it was his 3rd double-digit game of the season. His other 4 games are week 1.6, 7.3, 7, and 9 points for fantasy. So he is the literal definition of boom and bust, as I put in the column. He should really come with a health warning because he just will pull your hair out. But if you're desperate at wide receiver, he's the kind of guy that can put wide receiver 2, fringe wide receiver 1 numbers out there because he also gets kick returns. So he's someone that does have an extra string to his bow. However, at the end of the day, he is boom or bust. I'm not, recommending that he's going to do these numbers every single week, but he's got to be rostered, and it's better he's on your roster, even if he's on your bench, than he's being owned by somebody and you end up playing them and they eliminate you from playoff contention or the playoffs because he has one of those 7, 96, and 1 numbers against you. So that's something to think about. Other plays to consider: Alan Lazard is due off IR. He's just over 30% owned in ESPN leagues, but he's someone that might come back to some more volume because no one other than Devontae Adams has done anything really of merit since he's been on IR. In terms of other sort of over 30% owned plays, Corey Davis looks like he's fast becoming the receiver that was drafted 4 years ago in the first round, and he put up really good numbers. He is over 30% owned, but he's someone now that if he's on your waiver wire, you should roster him. He'll give you some headaches at times, but he'll also put in some solid wide receiver 2 games. If you're in those deeper leagues and you can't find a Hardman or a REAGOR out there, I've got you covered. Guys to target: Darnell Mooney, who looks like he's going to be productive in that Chicago offense. Pretty low ceiling given it's Chicago, but he has a reasonable floor, definitely better than Anthony Miller, that's for sure. Jacoby Myers, he looks like with Edelman out that he's going to get Edelman's work. He got a team high 10 targets on Sunday, so he's someone that you can roster. Kendrick Bourne looks like, especially with Deebo Samuel out, he's going to be the number 2 receiver, and he got a lot of targets as well, especially if Kittle is out, and I'll talk more about that in a minute on Sunday. Then Kendrick Bourne might be a sneaky ad as well. I think he's about 6 or 7, maybe even 8% owned. So those guys should be available on your waiver wires. I know Darnell Mooney's only a few percent owned. Jacoby Myers is less than 1% owned. So those guys will be on your waiver wires, that's for sure. Moving on to tight ends, and it's really the same couple of tight ends I talk about the last few weeks. Trey Burton, 9.2% owned. He's got Baltimore this week. Scored his 3rd touchdown in 2 games. And given what's going on the waiver wire right now, it is time to just invest a couple of dollars on Burton, either as your backup or in a matchup rotation with, say, a Logan Thomas, a Jimmy Graham, a Dallas Goedert if you bought him cheap, like I told you to. He should definitely be rostered in more than 9% of the leagues because he does have that touchdown upside, especially given the amount of looks he does get in the red zone. The other is Logan Thomas again. He is coming off a bye, so another waiver wire favorite. Talked about him a lot. But given the fact that Kyle Allen doesn't have a lot of targets to throw to, it is really just Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas in the red zone. There isn't anyone else, or Antonio Gibson. So I like Logan Thomas's chances to get a touchdown on Sunday against the Giants. If you're really desperate and these two are gone in your league, then Jordan Reed even might be activated off IR. George Kittle has gone, is hurt. He might not play. We need to get more updates. But if Jordan Reed is available, put a fab dollar on him. I think he's still got an IR designation, but he could return this week. If not, Ross Dwelly, if Kittle doesn't go and Reed doesn't go. He'll be the other one that might get some volume and maybe some touchdown upside for the 49ers on Thursday Night Football. So don't forget, it is a short week, and that does mean that Kittle's chances of playing Thursday Night Football, depending on the news we might get today, maybe tomorrow, could mean that if you act quickly, you might get a serviceable tight end this week, especially if you've got a tight end on bye or a tight end like a Jimmy Graham who isn't always going to perform for you. Now, moving on to kicker, I've gone with Ryan Suckup this week, 18.8% owned. Unless he's Mr. Reliable, he's not going to put up 20-point weeks. He's not going to put up 3-point weeks for the most part. He's going to be always somewhere in between. He's going to hover around kicker 12, kicker sort of 7 to 12, really. That's kind of his range. But against the Saints on Sunday, I do think I can easily see him kicking 2 or 3 field goals. He's not got that long leg on him, so he's not going to kick loads of 50-yard field goals. He's going to be more in the region of that sort of 30 to 40 range, but he is fairly consistent in making those kicks. So I like him to get a couple, maybe 2-3 field goals on Sunday against the Saints, plus a few extra points. I can see a path to him getting 10 points. And if I can get 10 points out of my kicker, I'm more than delighted. But I see him being in that 8 to 10 range this week. So that's why I've gone with Ryan Suckup. And the defense is going to shock people, but I've gone with the Houston Texans. They're only 2.1% owned, but they do have Jacksonville in week 9. Jacksonville have pretty much come out and said that Gardner Minshew will not start on Sunday. And so it looks like it's either going to be Mike Glennon, or they do have a third quarterback on the roster. I think it's Josh Dobbs, who they got from Pittsburgh for a 5th-round pick a couple of years ago. So I liken it to be potentially Glennon, but it could be either or. Either way, these guys aren't very good. Jacksonville are losing a lot of games. This could be their way to ensure the tank if we're being really cynical. But I think it's an absolute dream matchup for the Texans. They're going to get turnovers. They're going to get sacks. And I don't see the Jaguars scoring a lot of points this week. I'd be fading all Jacksonville skill players with the exception of James Robinson this week. Maybe DJ Chark might get an exception, but I need to look at the matchup in a bit more detail. But at the moment, I'm really not liking if I've got Chenault, if I've got a few other shares of like Keelan Cole. I'm not liking those guys this week for sure with that backup change. And that's only good things for the Texans. I think a few people might try and buy them up. I think you might need to put $3 or $4 down to get them, but I think they're easily a candidate for double-digit points this week and can really help you in a position that if you get a significant advantage, could lead to a win in a close game. So that's my pick. Although if you can find other defenses out there that are, if for some reason someone's dropped the Buccaneers, and I don't know why they would drop the Buccaneers defense, but if they're out there, obviously they're ones you want to target. As well as also the Colts, they generate a lot of turnovers, but I think the Colts are owned in 80% of leagues, 88% of leagues. So yeah, I think there's a few teams here that you can definitely buy low, but for me, the ultimate buy low for a 1 week stream is the Texans. So go put some fab on them, and they're definitely going to pay you off with a good result potentially this week. And they've also got Cleveland after that, who, as we saw against the Raiders, they could be stopped, and New England after that. So there's a couple of games where they could get some turnovers as well. That'll do it for the waiver wire this week. Hope you've enjoyed the content that we're putting out. Hope you're getting a lot of W's. Hope you're working towards those playoffs and those championships. Don't get complacent. This is the real time that wins mean more than most, because especially if you're sitting at 500, you need to win 3-4 games to get into your playoffs. This is the time that you've got to be making those moves. Be brave, make some trades, get involved on our sleeper channel. If you don't know where that is, tweet us and I'll send you a link. But get involved with the community out there, pick our brains for advice, join our Patreon for the price of a coffee a month. We'll give you direct access to us, and you can just reach out to any questions that you have at any time, and we'll get them through in a speedy asset. But if you have been enjoying the content, if you have found this useful, there is a tip jar on our Patreon page. You can just donate even just $1 or $2, just anything like that, just to really help us out, bring more content and more things to you. We've got more things in the pipeline, more podcasts in the works, more articles in the works. Hope you've been enjoying Mason's IDP streamers. Hope you've been enjoying all the content we put up. You can view it all at 5yardrush.co.uk. The waiver wire column is already up there, so you can view that with more details about the guys who are under 30% owned. But until the flagship show, Rush Nation, good luck and keep rushing.